My commitment for being poor, a poor college graduate with no job.
Hey, being poor is a commitment too, you know. Hello and welcome to Off the Saddle podcast, episode 2. My name is Manuel, and today I have my very first guest. His name is JD. He's a friend of mine who I met working at a bike shop, and now we work together at a new company. And so we've remained friends by luck or because there's no other options for us. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. JD, tell me about your writing background.
Hey everybody. My riding background. I started getting riding mountain bike when I was about 16 or 17. I mean, I was riding. I chose to ride my bike, when I was a teenager, as opposed to driving a lot. For that, so but
I
yeah,
bet that really got the girls.
I was a real ladies' man.
Oh yeah.
And then around 17, I went for my first mountain bike ride, which was in Mount Gretna, right near Hershey in Pennsylvania, and that kind of got me hooked from there.
So your first mountain bike ride, was it like did they ease you in, or did it just throw you into the fire?
No, it was a pretty. I mean, it was a short trail. Um, that's what Pennsylvania is kind of known for, having a lot of short trails, at least from my experience. And it was I think it was 6 miles. It was pretty long for me at the time, 6 miles.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it was basically, we climbed up this single. No, it was like a single track and fire road, but it was all roots and rocks out there in
Oof.
Pennsylvania. And so we climbed up and came screaming down on my $300 mountain bike that I borrowed. And I was hooked from there. I was like, oh man, this is awesome. And started to work my way up, trying to get nicer bikes and go on more fun rides and bigger rides, and kind of stuck around there. Went and, in college I rode a little bit here and there. I was on the mountain bike team. It was more like a ragtag, just riding club, and then a team. A couple people raced, but I was just kind of in party mode in college, so I didn't race really. I just tried to ride every once in a while. And then that's
At what point did you start doing mechanic work?
well, that's what I was about to get to right now. Basically when I graduated college, I didn't really have much going on. I wasn't going to be fed into a job right away, and I lived in rural America, so I didn't see any much opportunity. I mean, I'm sure there was, but I didn't see much opportunity. So my buddy said he was moving to California with his parents. That moved a little before he graduated. So I said, I'm going to come with you. And then, yeah, I packed a suitcase and 2 bicycles that I had. I got a road bike for my college graduation. It was my first road
Nice.
bike. It was a felt, I don't know, it was like $1,000 felt bicycle. So,
Oh,
it
that's kind
was
of baller
decent.
back then. Yeah, that's
It was a
nice.
decent starter bike. Had carbon chain stays and a carbon fork on it,
Oh, nice.
Back in 2001, that was
That's a big deal.
yeah, it was pretty nice. Felt was a pretty big name, or it was like an up and coming name, I think, at that time. But they did, some cool technology, from what I read. But I was just a noob, so I didn't know much of anything. But yeah, and then my goal when I moved to California was to ride from Sacramento. His parents lived outside of Sacramento. We lived with his parents, and I wanted to ride down the coast to Los Angeles.
Oh, that's awesome. Did you
And
ever do it?
yeah, so that's basically, yeah, I got a job, and I was doing like interviews for PhD programs and master programs for college, um, at a couple different universities, and they never really panned out. And I was just working at a sandwich shop, Togo's, if you know it. Togo's and Baskin Robbins. It was a joint venture there. So I got all the ice cream I wanted and sandwiches.
That's
And
crazy.
then yeah.
That's crazy. I actually worked at Subway.
Oh, nice.
That was one of my early jobs too. Sandwiches
Yeah.
just work.
Yeah. Togo's. I never heard of Togo's before I came to California. So I mean, I was just looking for any job because I didn't have any money. So yeah, I was making probably minimum wage or something, but I
Oh
didn't have to
yeah.
pay any rent or anything. And I was just basically doing that to prepare for my ride down to Los Angeles, and because my brother actually he moved out to California, Orange County, um, sometime before I moved to California. So I was just going to ride down to his place and then fly back to Pennsylvania because I was just on kind of a trip while I was waiting for my PhD programs to
Pan
kick in,
out.
which
Yeah.
never happened. So yeah, so it never really panned out, and my buddy got a job, so he was moving out of his parents' place. So obviously I couldn't stay there anymore because
Why
that'd be
not?
kind of weird.
Nah, just
Uh,
just slide on in. Be like,
yeah.
"Hi, mom. Hi, dad."
So I was like, all right, it's about that time. I think it was springtime at the time, so it was a good time for me to start my ride,
Oh yeah.
and I planned it out. You know, at that time, it was they didn't really have. I didn't have a smartphone at that time. I don't think smartphones were around then.
No, I
So
think it was like during the age of like Googling like MapQuest
yeah,
or
yeah, and
going
printed
and
out
then like
sheets.
printed out the sheet or write it
Yeah, so I
down.
had so I pretty much I don't remember what I had, but I know I printed everything out. I might have had a map to do it because I had to, take the streets and figure out the street route from where I was at,
Let me ask you
which was
this. Let me ask you this. Did you ever use like the painter's tape with the directions on the top tube of your bike?
no, I know I
Oh,
tried it a couple of times, but yeah, I
that was
never
my favorite. That was my favorite because you could just kind
really.
of scoot it up. Yeah, I love that. Just
Yeah,
like
it just
left
felt
here, right here.
yeah. I mean, when I was yeah. Yeah, I always wanted, I thought that was cool, but yeah, I never did that. Um, I'm not sure. I guess whenever I just rode by myself, I only rode stuff that I knew where to go or just got lost and figured it out as I went or something. I never really did like routes that people suggested.
I did a
'Cause-
lot of routes because I didn't know how to get to the rides that I wanted to get to. So
yeah,
like being like in Baldwin Park, like I wanted to get to North Hollywood to start the ride.
yeah,
So once I was with them, I didn't care where I went, but how to get home and how to get there, like that's why I was a big fan of that Scotch
yeah,
tape and direction.
yeah. That might have been made things easier. Yeah, because I did. Yeah, I used to do the rides. Ride from the house to wherever the ride was. Because I didn't have a car for first 3 years I was in California. I didn't have a car. I rode my bike everywhere.
That's commitment.
Yeah, my commitment for just being poor, a poor college
Hey,
graduate with no job.
being poor is a commitment too, you know.
Yeah. So the map or the printed out sheets or something, and I kind of rode, the streets, and
Was it like
me.
a multi-day thing or one shot?
Oh no, yeah, I was a little weakling. I was doing like 40, 50-mile rides on my own.
You say you weren't the
Bef-
beast that you are now.
no. Yeah, I think my goal was to do like 100 miles per day.
Hmm. That's good.
Um, so yeah, and I was going to do it in 6 days. I think it was 600 miles or so from where I
That's awesome.
was, because I wasn't like at Sacramento. I was a little east of Sacramento, like between Sacramento and Lake Tahoe. So I had to make my way kind of over and down towards. I think Modesto was my first kind of big city. I I aimed towards, and a lot of that was also like Well, I have to like head west, sort of. So just keep riding and keep making right turns to go west. And that's how I did a lot of it. And then, yeah, I feel like I did a lot of famous climbs too. Like what that, I forget that Tour of California, the one,
Diablo?
Chris, yeah, yeah. I feel
Yeah.
like I did that one, but I didn't know it at the time because I wasn't really in the second. I was just, riding my bike.
You're just like, damn, this climb sucks.
But yeah, riding out from like I think it was Modesto over to San Jose. It was just like a massive climb. I was just chugging along, going up this gigantic hill. It's like this is taking forever. So and I started like first thing in the morning too. I guess I stayed at yeah, that was my first stop. I think I went there, stayed at a hotel. It was my first stop, so I stayed at a hotel. I was planning on just camping most of the time because I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
So I stayed at like a $50 for the night at a hotel and then or motel, and I'd slugged up that. And then I made it to San Jose, and I don't know. I made it around. I slept on the side of the road a couple times. I remember there's one time I stopped like on a road and just walked into the wilderness for a mile and a half and hung up at a hammock that tied to trees. So I just
Okay.
slept in the hammock. And then
That's
yeah, that's pretty much it. And then
that's roughing it. That's bike packing before it was cool.
yeah, yeah. And then I made it to Big Sur
Okay.
to
Yeah.
a, and I made it to a campground. Big Sur was pretty crazy. This like super windy and these big ass
Oh yeah.
RVs driving on the free or on the
Oh yeah.
highway. It's like that was pretty sketchy. But anyway,
The,
I made it to this campground and
there's a section on Big Sur that like you're like winding around the mountain, and literally if you stop, it'll blow your bike away from you like a kite.
yeah, I was getting blown around quite a bit. It was pretty crazy. Yeah, I stopped at a campground there, and that was one of the cool spots in my camp. Like my campsite had two trees that were kind of angled, like the in and out trees how they're angled,
Mm.
and they were angled over a, a creek that meandered through the campground. So I hung my hammock, so I was like sleeping over the water. That
Oh,
was
nice.
pretty memorable. And then that was Memorial Day weekend, I think.
Oh, so it was busy.
Yeah, so yeah, they were like, "All right, you got to get out of here. It's Memorial Day weekend." So I was like, "All right." And this one girl there at the campground, uh, she was she was like, "Oh, you should work here." I was like, oh, "Okay, I'll work here. That's fine." So she's like, "We need people to work. You can just live here." I was like, "Oh, all right." So I went and talked to like the boss or somebody, and they said, "Oh yeah, you can. Yeah, I'll give you a job. Do you have this, and this?" I was like, "No, I'm just riding my bike through. I don't have anything. I have my driver's license." And they're like, "All right, yeah, you got to get out of here."
Oh,
All right. So that was
the day the dream died.
so yeah, I could have ended up just being a mountain man in Big Sur, living in a campground.
Oh wow.
That would have been my life. But alas, I kept on going, and you know, eventually made it to Los Angeles. That was
I'm
pretty
glad you
crazy.
did. I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
Was it
And
like a
then
letdown? Was that your first time seeing Los Angeles?
yeah, well, I think so. Yeah. I went to San Diego when I was like 16.
No, it's not the same. Was it a
Yeah.
letdown?
It was really interesting, I guess. I mean, yeah, it's a lot different than I expected.
Even though I was a California guy, I lived here my whole life. When I finally went to Los Angeles and I saw it for what it was, I was very surprised. It was not what I thought based on movies and everything you kind of imagine.
Yeah. I mean, I think the most kind of salient feeling that I had was I understand all those '80s movies that had Los Angeles as like the backdrop.
How so?
Because like I recognized like all the scenery. Like when I was a kid, I lived in rural America. Like, there were no big buildings. There was no concrete. It was grass. I mean, my my childhood home is uh, the backyard is a creek, and beyond that creek is a giant field of corn. And then to the north of the house is about 50 feet, and then another giant field of corn. And then to the south of the house is like a couple houses, and then beyond those houses is a giant field of corn. And then to the west of the house is a street that goes up, and then at the end of that street is a giant field of corn. Like that was my life growing up. So, and then
Oh
we
yeah,
would watch these movies. Like Poltergeist was one of them. Like Poltergeist, I immediately thought like, oh, this is like the scenery from Poltergeist. Like all these suburbs, like concrete everywhere, or like I can't think of like the name. I always draw back blank to movie names, but that's was my feeling. Like, oh, this is what this is why. Like, I never understood those movies. Like, who lives
like
like this?
where could this possibly be?
Yeah, and then I was like, oh, this is it right here. All these
That
people
that
live like this.
that's crazy. I feel like I got the like reverse effect when I finally went out to like where it wasn't as metropolitan, where there wasn't, city after city and concrete after concrete. I was like, wow, this still exists.
Yeah, and then I think, yeah, I mean, I think, and then also my first experience with, I guess it wasn't my first experience with Los Angeles because that's where we drove when I drove out to California with my buddy. We drove into Orange County and we went to Newport Beach, and we saw all the like the Mercedes dealership and the Bentley dealership and all the fancy cars, and it's like, what
Ooh.
the heck is going on here? So then we drove, and then we drove like we were on the freeway, but we were in the middle of a city, like going up to five. Like, why are we in the middle of a city while we're on the freeway? This doesn't make any sense. Because out east and in the Midwest, they have a freeway that goes around the city, the Beltway, and you drive around the city. You don't drive through it. That doesn't make sense. Like, why would you get stuck in
It
traffic? You
does.
just get through the other side of
No,
the city.
it makes a lot of sense in California.
So
You
you
don't
be
want to
stuck
go
in
around the
traffic.
city. There's no point around the city.
Yeah,
That's also why I hear that California talks about stuff in time. Like, oh yeah, it's a half hour away or it's an hour away. Where in other parts of the United States, it's more like, oh, that's 20 miles or that's like 5 miles away. You
yeah,
can't use that logic in California, especially in the city.
yeah, yeah. That's true. I guess my experience. That was my first experience with time because I got to Los Angeles, which was really Santa Barbara.
Mm.
Because I got to like Santa Barbara, I was like, oh, this
Oh,
is Los
and
Angeles.
that's nice. That's Santa Barbara's
And I
nice.
was
It's
like,
still very,
yeah,
green.
yeah. And then I called my brother. I said, hey, brother, I don't feel like riding my bike anymore. Can you come pick me up? Thinking like, you know, he's maybe like half hour, 45 minutes away. He's like, all right. I think like 2 or 3 hours later, he shows up. He's like, I can't believe you did that. I was like, bro, you should have just told me that you're not coming. Like, I didn't realize it was gonna be so long. Like, I thought I was in Los Angeles. Like, this is the city. Like, I've been in desolate desert grasslands for the past 100
how
miles.
how much more city can there be?
Like, this is it. And I was looking on the map, like, this is like, but it was like a big map, it was zoomed out. So I didn't realize that there's, space between Santa Barbara. I could have rode for another 100 miles.
Oh yeah,
I could have
definitely.
done another day. But yeah, so then my brother picked me up and I went back to his house and stayed there for a little bit. And I was like, all right, time to go back to Pennsylvania. Let's check this out. Oh, airplane tickets, $300. How much money do I have? $0. All right. I guess I need to get a job so I can do something. So
The
I was
ultimate
like, man,
motivation.
yeah. So started looking for a job, and the first place I went to was Rock and Road Cycler, which was down the street from my brother's house.
Oh, perfect.
And they were like, yeah, we're looking for someone who can just, has experience already. I was like, all right. I was like, I can figure everything out. I was like, no, all right. So I found another one up the street. It was Jack's Bicycles in Yorba Linda. And I went in there and just said, hey, can I get a job? And they're like, yeah, we're hiring. I was like, all right. Here's, I filled out the application. I did the interview and stuff, and they gave me a job, and that was the beginning.
That's kind of cool. I've actually ridden for both of those teams.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jack's is way cooler. Rock and Road was kind of lone wolf.
Yeah. Yeah, Rock and Road, I think, yeah, they're two different clientele. Jack's is like,
yeah,
I think Jack's is more like the family.
definitely. I felt the vibe more. I mean, both of them were good to me. I can't, talk any madness or anything, but I definitely felt a little more included when I raced for Jack's.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of their motto. They want everyone to feel warm and fuzzy when they come into the store or leave the store.
Then why did they hire you?
I don't know.
You're like
a very nice HR manager gave me a chance, and that's all I needed.
That's all you needed.
And I kind of grew from there. I was a very shy fellow back then, so getting the job at the bike shop on the sales floor was kind of a big step for me.
That's cool. That's real cool. And now look at you.
And now look at me, not working on bikes anymore.
Well, but that's life though. Like it's interesting. Like obviously, I fixed bikes for a huge part of my life. Even when I wasn't doing it like professionally, I was still fixing it for like all the local like rides. Like GLK and Whittier. Like they'd come over, I'd help them out. Like that was always a big part of my life. So and now it's like I fix my own bike. That's like the extent of all my work now. And I live so far that the friends I did have, they don't come to San Bernardino just to get their bike fixed by me.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's life.
Yeah. So that's I mean that's how I got into cycling.
That's cool. And then years later, I guess from then, right? Like years later, we would end up meeting in a bike shop too. And I remember when I met you, I knew it instantly. I'm like, oh, JD, huh? This guy? Yeah, I can tell right away, man. Me and this guy, we're not going to be friends. This guy hates me. That was my initial thought.
That's how I come up for everybody, I think.
Dude, when I met you, I thought you just couldn't stand me. And the disdain in your eyes when I'd ask you a question, like I'm like, how do you do this? And you're like, oh, you don't know how to do this?
No way.
No. You had that look, dude. You had that look, and I bet you it wasn't even like intentionally that look. I bet you it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, you don't know this. Let me show you, because you always showed me. You always showed me, but like the vibe I got was that you just hated me.
Yeah,
which was
that's funny.
That's the vibe I got. It could also be my own insecurity, right?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting because I got that job, just really to kill time, because I was kind of in between jobs. Like I left my last job and I was living on unemployment and just kind of being really picky and choosy on where I wanted to get a new job. So I didn't want my unemployment to run out. So that's when I was like, I'll get a part-time job at a bike shop. So
good move.
Yeah, I just went there, and so I only worked like 3 days a week, right?
Yeah, that's right. You weren't like full time. I remember that. What's crazy is that the whole time you were there, I don't think we rode once. Like I don't think we rode once. I remember that it was until after you stopped working there that you hit me up for a ride.
Yeah.
And that was actually my first real gravel ride. And I was like, JD wants to ride? Like I thought in my head, I was like, I thought he didn't like me. But at the same time, like I had ridden with people who I didn't like and had really good rides either way. Cycling's
Yeah.
weird like that. You don't have to like the people around you on a group ride to have a really good ride with them. Because sometimes it's
Oh
not
yeah.
about like the conversation. Sometimes it's about like pushing each other or something.
Yeah. Pushing each
And
other, depending on each other. It's like,
yeah,
you know,
you grow from especially a mountain ride. I'd say a mountain ride more than anything else. You do grow in that whatever 4 or 5 hours if you do a real mountain, right?
yeah.
And you actually got me into gravel. Uh, I had done basically gravel without knowing what it was because similarly, I did a 500-mile trip with a friend, and I was like, well, I got a road bike. Can I take that? And he was like, no, you can't take that. I was like, well,
Yeah.
why not? He's like, well, we're going to be bike camping. So basically, you need a mountain bike or some kind of mixed bike. I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, just you need a bike that you can ride on dirt and on road. Just figure it out. So I went online and I was like looking it up, like what can I take on the dirt on the road, and a lot of these like I forgot what they're called, rondulers or something like that. It's like a group of people who have before gravel was a thing. They were basically bike camping all the time, and it was like a
Yeah.
small group of people, and they were really open to sharing like their techniques and how they pack a bike and stuff like that.
Yep.
So I basically found a bike that was a cyclocross bike that had eyelets so you could put a rack on it.
Yep.
I did that, and that was like the start of me realizing that it's really fun when you don't have to just stay on the pavement.
Yeah.
And
That's yeah, that's the I mean that's the hook on gravel. You get a bike and you can do whatever you want.
that's definitely what it is. And I
And
think like
it's
you were the first one to actually take me on a quote unquote gravel ride because you're like, yeah, some of it's paved, some of it's not paved. It's up this mountain, and maybe we don't know where we're going. We're just gonna
yeah,
go in that direction. And I was like, whoa, what do you mean? Because even at that point, even when like I did it was like my birthday ride where we just shot north, right
yeah,
up the highway,
yep,
and we went like to Big Sur and to Davenport, but there was a plan. It was go this way, turn around. Like there was always a plan. This was
yeah,
like, yeah, we're gonna start here and we'll see where we go. I
yep,
I don't think my roadie mind was ready for that. Like I needed way more structure, and I was like, I don't know, man. Like, where we gonna go, and where does it turn out? Let me look at some maps. Like, and you're like, no, we'll just
yeah,
go that way.
yeah. It's it's an interesting like evolution that's happened. For pretty much the entire cycling industry is you know from my experience in the cycling industry, it started in 2006 or seven. Is like everything is about racing.
Yeah,
Like get the fast bike, get the fast road bike, get the fast mountain bike. You can do like a downhill bike.
yeah.
There
That was
wasn't
the
like
other.
there wasn't a there was like and then they had the comfort bikes or the hybrids or whatever that was the old man or the old lady bike that you just kind of
Right.
cruise
They
around.
called they still call it the grandma bike.
Yeah. So um and then there's the evolution of of the time is like I think around 2011 2012 is when they started making the Perry Roubaix type bikes more
Right.
accessible to people, and people were like more accepting of that. Like,
Like
oh, people there was still like a stigmatism, like, oh, you ride a specialized Roubaix instead of tarmac, you
right.
know. But people bought them, and people were enjoying them, and I would say they were the kind of early adopters to say, it's screw the racing bike. I don't need to be on a racing bike,
You know what
to
the
to
turning
enjoy
point
myself.
was? I remember at the time I read a lot of like magazines, like Road Bike Magazine, and just like all of those, right? And Peloton and stuff like that. Like there was a turning point when people found out that racers didn't ride their tarmacs off season. They preferred the Roubaix. It's like, no, if I'm not racing, I want this bike. It's more comfortable. Like, why wouldn't I do this? Oh, I want to be on, 25s, not 23s if I'm not racing. And things like that started coming out, and people would talk about like, "Well, what are you racing right now?" And they're like, "Oh, well, I'm off season, so I go with the bigger tire, or I'm more comfortable, or like the position's a little bit less aggressive." Like that was something that I remember reading about, and like for a long time, like you said, it was like you wanted exactly what people used in the Tour de France. Like that's what you wanted. Like that was the goal. I'm gonna buy a bike. What do you want? I want the Tour de France bike.
Yeah,
I want the, the BMC machine, whatever race machine, like '01. And like it was such like it wasn't the most uncomfortable bike, but comparatively it was. And you have to remember, like these guys are like at such an elite level that everything matters for them. But for the most people riding out there, they would get more enjoyment from just having a nice bike that's fast. That's a little bit comfortable too.
yeah, yeah. I think on the other side of that is also the manufacturing companies, and having what's available, like the Trek Madone, in the early 2000s. I mean, that bike was not rideable for normal people. Like
No.
even racer dudes, were running spacers on above that head tube.
Oh,
So
totally. My experience with that was actually the tarmac, the two, I think. When the two came out, I was
yeah,
like, I can't ride it. And I could have got a smoking deal on it. And I'm like, nah, dude, that's jarring.
yeah,
It's jarring. It's like too much for me. I couldn't
yeah,
ride. Like my arms hurt after like a hard ride because I wasn't riding perfect conditions. I was riding, the San Gabriel River Trail,
yeah,
and Mulholland and some of these areas that the road is not perfectly paved. Like it was rough.
yeah, yeah. It's yeah. I think yeah, it was around 2010 to 2012. I think it really started to shift a little bit, and then around that time, I was working at a manufacturing company for in the bike industry, and I pretty much got away from racing because I got married. And I think I might have had a kid at the time or something. Just forget what the specific date was. But I started to look for a new bike that I wanted, and I wanted a bike where I could ride it on the street and on the trail because I didn't want to drive anywhere. I wanted to ride my bike and I wanted to ride trails. So I started looking for a bike where I could do that, but I didn't want a cross bike.
Right.
I just, because the cross, I want to specifically, I wanted a uh, a horizontal top
Oh,
tube
top tube. Yep. Horizontal top tube.
because all the cross bikes were sloped down for the jumping on or whatever. And then I also wanted room for like ideally I wanted room for mountain bike tires, but at least like 1.8s on it. And I was looking around and I could not for the life of me find a bike. I was looking for a year straight. Just I worked in the bike
Salsa,
industry, so
dude.
no,
Salsa made a lot of headway though. They were
they did, but they
early.
didn't
They were
have
early
any,
early in it.
yeah, yeah, they definitely had a bike, but the design, I didn't like the design.
Mm-hmm.
And but like I worked in the bike industry. I knew all the bike brands. Like
Right.
I knew what they all were, and I was, where to find everything, and I could not find a bike like this. So, uh, I did. I eventually found one. I forget what the company is called, but they were a UK company, and they had
Okay.
a one bike shop in Iowa that distributed them. And I called that shop, and the guy kind of blew me off. So it never really happened. And then the
You know
next,
what? No one talks about that side of it. No one talks about the fact that like the bike snob. I can't say it died. He died, but there's a lot more wiggle room now
yeah,
for someone not being the bike snob since it's kind of like open to the masses, and like what most people ride and what most people like doing is more the consensus as opposed to like, because even then, like when I was racing, like I remember, like I won't say what team, but I was racing for a team, and I went in there, and at the time I was fairly fast, And I went in there and they're like, "Hey, what's up, man? Hey, I saw you in that race, and oh, you had a good breakaway, and blah blah blah." And dude, I was like, "Oh man, this spot's really cool, man. Like, I like this spot. They're really nice there." And then I saw like a buddy of mine who was also on the team go in there, but he was like more like a casual member, right? He was chubby. He wasn't very fast. He barely raced. He went in there and they were so mean to him. They were just like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you race?" And I was like, "Oh, dude, no, what a dick!" Like, I was like, "Fuck that, dude! Like, you don't got my business either. If that's the way you're gonna treat people, like, you don't got my business."
Yeah. Yep.
So you got
Yeah.
bike snobbed, and you didn't get the bike you wanted with the horizontal top tube and giant tires.
Yep. So then I found Raleigh. Raleigh actually made a really cool bike. It was only gonna fit like probably a 1.5 tire on it, but I was like, I want to get this, and I called him up. I worked in the industry, so I was like, let me get a deal because it's pretty standard. I wasn't trying to be like, oh, I'm special. I mean, it's a standard thing in the bike industry. Like,
It's why
you
you
can get,
work in the bike industry. Let's be
yeah,
real.
like you don't get paid a lot in the
You're
bike
not getting
industry,
paid a lot.
so
You're not
you
getting
get
paid a
paid
lot.
and you get paid in perks.
That's
So
exactly it. Yeah.
so yeah, they kind of blew me off on that, and I think the bike was like, I don't know, $2,000 or something like that, and it was like too much for me to afford because it came with all the parts and I didn't want all the parts. I wanted my own, or I had a bunch of parts already.
Yeah.
I don't know, something didn't work out properly. So then I was like, all right, I still couldn't find a bike that I wanted, and I went to Interbike, and uh, this company called CoMotion had a
Okay.
booth right next to my company's,
Some
and I
custom.
was just, yeah, CoMotion. They're known for their tandem bikes. Um, and I was just walking around the booth, like we had a little break. There weren't any kind of clients or customers around. So I walked over there, I was checking them out, and I saw it. I saw the bike. I was like, holy shit. This is
This is
this is
what
the
you're looking
fucking
for.
bike. This I've spent over a year looking for this thing and it's right here in front of me, like right next to my booth. What are the odds of that? So I'm looking at this thing. It's got the flat top tube.
Hmm.
It's got it's got full mountain bike 29-inch tires on it.
Oh, nice.
It's steel round tubes. It's beautiful. So I talked to the guy. I said, I want how do I get this bike? Like I need this bike. And they're like, here's my card. Give us a call when you get back. You can go on our website, check it out, and you can do all this stuff. So there are a couple things that were wrong with it still. One, it was considered a touring bike then.
Okay.
Like they didn't have it wasn't there was no gravel bike. So
Yeah.
it was considered a touring bike, and it had touring tubing on it, so it was pretty heavy.
Right.
Like I think right now with like pretty decent parts on it weighs 25 pounds.
Right.
So that's with like XTR hubs and stands, rims. So it had so with being a touring bike, it had 142 wide hubs
Okay.
in the rear, which back then
Yeah.
wasn't. It was 135. You know,
Yeah.
they were supposed to be
You weren't gonna be able to
135.
fit anything else, so it would
Yeah,
be
so
rough.
I'd have to use their proprietary because they had like a proprietary hub that fit specifically on that bike that was 142. That wasn't common. So yeah, I was like, I need a 135 hub, and then you could choose the color. So yeah, so I chose a baby blue because I was into baby blue at that time, like a metallic baby blue, and then I got the
So
135 hub.
so real quick, I've seen this bike because I've ridden with JD now, and he still has his bike. It's a really nice baby blue. I wouldn't even call it baby blue, but it's a really nice blue, a
Yeah,
light blue for sure.
yeah, yeah. Yep. So yeah, I got that. I got that bike, and um, I ordered it. I got the frame, and and I ran into another issue. I couldn't find parts to put on it. Like I wanted, there was mountain bike tires on it. I didn't want to run around with with a 25 tooth cassette. Like I couldn't get
No,
up
no way.
the hills, the trails on a 25 tooth cassette.
Mm-hmm.
So I like mishmashed this, mountain bike derailleur with a, 8 speed Altegra shifters, and
Right. Mm-hmm.
it was a mishmash. And you know, there were things online about how to do it properly, and I was a mechanic,
Yeah.
so I could adjust things, but I never rode the bike because it never functioned properly. It would work sometimes, and
Yeah.
it pretty much sat. I rode it maybe once every couple months, and I just didn't ride it because it was not enjoyable. And
Mm.
then, but I think I skipped over. I skipped over something I want to go back to.
All right.
And that
What's
was
up?
my first gravel ride.
Okay.
Why I
Uh,
wanted to get that bike.
I would have guessed it was on your trip on your excursion from Sacramento to
No,
Orange
no,
County. No.
no, that was all on street.
Oh.
No, so my first gravel ride was I think 2010, and this was a time when I was training to do like I wanted to be an kind of ultra distance mountain bike racer guy. So I was
Okay.
doing huge rides,
Leadville.
60,
All right.
70-mile rides. So this one ride, I rode from Costa Mesa, and I wanted to ride from the beach to the peak. It's like I forget what it's called. It's
Surf
like
and
Santa
turf.
Peak. Yes. I don't know. But you ride from the beach all the way to the Santiago Peak.
Nice.
Um, but that was one of the rides I wanted to do. I didn't want to do it at this time, but I was
Mhm.
like scouting it out, because I didn't have a smartphone or anything. So I rode.
Strava wasn't what it is now.
Yeah, no Strava. So I rode, and I started riding up the street that goes into the mountains, and I was riding up the pavement. And I was gonna stop when it turned to dirt because you don't take your road bike on the dirt.
Mm-mm.
So I rode to there, and oh, I rode all the way up here, like at the where it switches from concrete to dirt, or pavement to dirt. It's like a little canyon, and you have no view. And I was like, I rode all the way up here. Like I need to at least see a view. So I'm just gonna go around this curve and go to this spot right here. And I go around, I go onto the dirt, and I ride up, and I didn't stop. I kept going. And
Oh,
so I was like, one more. So
you did some roadie dirt.
so I kept riding up on my road bike on the dirt, and I rode all the
Nice.
way to a place called Four Corners, and it was pretty far up the dirt. It was like a couple mile climb. Maybe I might be lying. I don't know, but it was a while, and I had to
Uh,
come back down.
let me say this though, as you're about to descend on a road bike, I gotta say that like I'm not an amazing descender. I've gotten better with time as far as like my ability, even on a gravel bike, even on a mountain bike, right? Like it was never really my forte. But watched you on a road bike do things that I wouldn't be comfortable on a gravel bike. So like so I think this explains that. Like when you're doing like 23s and you're doing dirt trails like that's telling.
Yeah, yeah. So I had to come back down, and that was on rim brakes on 23 millimeter tires.
Hmm.
They might even be narrower. I don't know, but yeah,
You
they're definitely.
would. You would.
but yeah, and then uh, yeah, I came back down, and that's one of my most memorable rides. And that's when you know, I always thought back to that, and it was time for a new bike at that time. And that's when I was like, I need to get something that I can ride, on the dirt and on the street, based
And then
because of
you
that
get
ride.
it, and then you get it, and then it sits there and you don't
And
use
then
it.
yeah, it sits there because it doesn't work because because no one makes any parts. And then yeah, it sat there for probably probably 4 years maybe. I would just ride it here and there just because it didn't work right.
Yeah, I think Shimano saved the day with their long cage 105.
That's
That
yep.
changed a lot of things for like mix and matching and doing things you're not supposed to.
Yep, that's when I was working at the bike shop with you. I think
Yeah.
that's when we talked about it, and I bought that 105 group with the long cage, and then I bought the 40 tooth rear cassette.
And I think it was you. It was either you or this guy named Timmy who worked at Cannondale, who taught me or taught us about swapping the barrel adjuster for the opposite side, so that way you
Yeah,
get a little bit more. No, the limit. It was a limit.
that
You
limit
swap
screw.
the
Yeah,
limit the other way, and that gives you a little bit more play.
yep.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that
so
was
it
some sketchy
works.
stuff.
Yeah, that 105 long cage works. It doesn't work really well on the
No,
42 tooth, but if I'm in a bind, I can use it. But it's
I actually rode my 105. I'm not sure if this is like a thing or not. I just called it suicide. Because I had it set up in a way where if I went big, I would snap my rear derailleur.
yeah,
Like you couldn't do that. It would work fine if you were not on big,
yep,
and because at that point there was no subcompact yet, or maybe it existed, but like not for me, right? Like it wasn't you like ever out there really.
yeah,
So I was still just doing your normal cross gears, and yeah, it wasn't gonna happen. Like, so I remember like always being like tentative, and people were like, "Well, how do you write that?" It's like, well, you just gotta make sure you don't shift big, and you'll be fine.
yeah, yeah. That's how a lot of people did it.
Oh, and I didn't invent that for sure. Like that's kudos to all the forums back in the day who would talk about this stuff.
Yeah, the internet,
Yeah, the
the
internet
internet
saved the day.
wins.
Yeah, always does, man. Always does, dude. So speaking of the internet and apps and modern technology, you're not really a Strava guy. You were even before. I think you have a platinum account thanks to me. You're welcome.
That's expired now, but
Oh, okay. Well, you're welcome for having it for a little bit.
I did enjoy it for a time.
Mhm.
Thank you for that.
Oh, yeah.
That was enjoyable. I might sign back up once I start writing more.
Right. Yeah, that's the truth, right? But Strava for me has always been like a love hate. Like it's always been a love hate because I jumped on it right away. Like I don't know the years. I want to say it's 2011 where I started Strava. It was like 2010, 2011. I think there was some other app that I was using as well in 2010. And then,
It was like Geo something, like a
yeah,
Garmin. It was like Ladders.
Geo letters. Yep. And I was
Yeah. I
using
was on
that.
Geo Ladders.
I was using that. And then Strava came out and it was like this real simple way to do it. And by simple, I mean like you could just upload your Garmin file, not like all automatic on Bluetooth like it is now.
Yeah,
But but it was like a very easy way. And I was like, oh man, I'll try this out. Well, unfortunately for me now, 2011, 2012 was like the fastest I've ever been.
yeah,
So like those times stay there forever. They don't tell you that. They'll
yeah.
like
That's a challenge.
I almost feel like starting a brand new account like it's like Manuel Corona old.
Yeah,
So I could be like ranked amongst myself now, and I'm gonna look at my like 25-year-old me who has like times that are like an hour faster for like 10 miles.
yeah. I didn't think about that. I was always kind of sad that I didn't jump on it earlier when I was, in my top condition. But now that I think about it, maybe it's a good thing. I don't have to compete with my youngest self. I had to compete with my no kids married self, which rode more than I do now. But
Right.
he was decently fit. But now I'm just dad bod.
Oh, there's some sections, dude. There's some sections that like I'm not sure if I'm more proud or sad of because like I look at them and I'm still like in the top 10 and I'm like, how? Like how did I get there? How
Yeah,
after 10 years I'm still top 10? Like that's ridiculous. Like, oh man, it's
yeah,
sad. Then
yeah,
there was like the Strava Wars, which was really fun. The Strava Wars, that's when I kind of liked Strava a lot. There was like these kids who were all about KOMs. So like they made it a point to get a bunch of them, and there were like these pointless KOMs. Like three people had done this
yeah.
route, They would create a route just to do the route, just to get the
That's
KOM.
that's the only KOMs I ever got.
Right? Accidentally crushing some kid's KOM. But I got into a tiff with this guy, and his name was Henry. And I was like, all right, then, you know what? I'm going to go after every one of your KOMs, and you can go after mine. And we'll see at the end of the summer who has the most. I
Yeah.
have so many pointless KOMs. Once in
Wow.
a while, I'll get that random email like, "Uh-oh, someone took your KOM." I'm like, "Good for you. Good for finding that random left turn, right turn, right turn, left turn KOM."
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah,
But
I had one. I think I had one. I think I had two KOMs. One of them was on my commute from work to home. Uh, there was a section with a traffic light. So since I did it, multiple times a week, sometimes I caught the green light,
there you
and
go.
eventually I was able to get through and get the KOM. I don't think I have that KOM anymore though.
I would say the most proud I've ever been for a KOM was when I did this ridiculous ride with what was it? Wolfpack? Midnight Wolfpack. What were they called? Something Wolfpack.
I
Right?
think yeah,
Wolfpack Hustle.
yeah,
Wolfpack Hustle. I did this ride with them where we basically rode because they had just finished racing the jet, and that got like TV coverage. It was a big deal.
yeah. From Burbank to Los
Burbank to
Angeles or
Burbank
to
to Long Beach.
Long Beach. Yeah,
Yeah, so that was rad. Like they did that, and they had got some coverage, and they're like, you know what? Let's do another crazy thing. We want to ride from LA to Interbike, which was like in Las Vegas. So LA to Las Vegas, and I somehow got asked to join that team, mostly through my friend Augusto, who like knew them better than I did. And I'm like, yeah, I'm down. And he was faster than me at the time. He was like a Cat 2 racer. I was like Cat 3 or 4, right? And like I remember going with them on that, and we got this random KOM because sometimes if a climb's big enough and no one's done it, it creates it. Well, we went up the Grapevine on our bikes. And then when you enter Las Vegas, it's actually a climb. It doesn't look like it on the car, but it's a pretty nasty climb.
yeah,
And it was just like false flat after false crest after false flat after false crest. And it was like people were just so disheartened by it that they just started falling off. And a couple of us, you know how it is when you're around a bunch of fit dudes, like someone's going to keep pressing. And we started pressing. There was at least 2 or 3 times that we sprinted, thinking it's the last bump, just to see another false flat to our right. And we're like, "Oh, damn it!"
yeah,
but
yeah,
but I but I got the better of my amigos on that one climb. Everything else they kicked my ass in, right? Let's be fair. But on that one climb, I got them, and yeah, that was pretty intense. Like I was proud of that, even though it was again like maybe 4 people had done it. It was a pretty major climb for a long time, and other people have done it now, and I'm like, not the KOM anymore. But that is one of them where like if someone beats me on that or I see someone else do it, I definitely give a kudos because after doing that, it's that's one of those climbs that you remember. That's like doing I'm not sure if you've ever done it, but it's like uh it's Glendora to like Dawson's Saddle.
yeah,
That's like 8,000 feet of climbing. Like that's religious. You're
yeah,
going through it all during that. Like it's such a difficult ride. It's very very doable once you're in shape, but it tests you.
yeah,
So if you see someone get a good like, and that's more famous to be honest. But if you see someone get a good time on that, or just even do it for the first time, it's like it's kudos worthy. I gotta ask you, Lycra. I don't have. You said dad bod. Well, I think I'm past dad bod now at this point, man. I have like granddad bod at this point. I'm not really a lycra guy anymore. I still wear it underneath, but I'll wear like shorts over or in a t-shirt or like a base layer and like a mountain bike jersey. I'm not really a tight lycra guy anymore. Are you
yeah,
still you still
yeah.
rocking the lycra?
Yeah, it's so much hotter to wear like the baggy shorts and shirts and stuff. Like you just throw on the lycra, it's nice and like you feel the wind blowing through. It's cool.
My my
I,
lycra, my shorts are not that loose. Let's be fair.
but yeah, it's yeah. I don't think I'll ever give up the lycra. I've given up the shaved legs
Oh yeah,
now,
no,
but
shaved legs are done. I'm done with shaved legs.
yeah,
I
I'll do it.
I
I might
bet.
do it coming up here for this summer. I'm working on I'm working on training for a ride. So
Oh yeah, what do
I
you what do you
started
what do you, what
I
wait,
started
what are we training for?
I'm I'm working on either the mammoth, depending on my fitness level, this
Okay,
summer. The mammoth tough is my goal, but I'll settle for the mammoth grand fondo.
okay.
But that's yeah, that's my goal right now. So I started riding, pretty frequently about 2 months ago, and then I got sick, and then that kind of kicked me off, and then I was gonna start up again last week, which I started in Vegas, and then I got sick again after Vegas. So so hopefully I'm gonna start up here. That's when I'm gonna, probably sign up for the Strava Platinum or whatever they call it. Maybe shave
Oh
my
damn.
legs,
Oh,
get out there and
things are
because
getting serious.
I don't know how hairy your legs are, but I
I
shave my
have.
legs just specifically so I can put sunscreen on because I cannot put sunscreen on
Oh, dude,
the hair on my legs.
I have leg warmers on right now. Like, like, like ancestry. It's like Spanish Portuguese, dude. It's there's a word in Spanish called monchichi. That's where I'm at. I'm at that level. It's just I'm hairy, dude. Yeah. So
Nice.
if I don't shave, it's a hairy ordeal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I
I
do
stay
that for the
warm.
sunscreen base pretty much.
You know what? I did it. I did it because I didn't want to do it at first. And my first time I went down on my bike, the amount of hair it ripped off and hurt when they scrubbed it convinced me like not. And someone told me it hurts less if you don't have hair. You get
Yeah,
more of a burn and you don't get that ripping the hair out of his follicles.
yeah.
And
Yeah, I
I was like,
think
all right, go ahead.
yeah, I started just because pretty much everybody else was doing it. And then and then I crashed my mountain bike and kind of rolled into a cactus. And that's when I was
Ooh.
like, and that's a good reason to shaving your legs because I was able to just kind of prick all the needles off. It was no big deal. If I had hair,
On that
I'd have
beautiful
been a
butt,
nightmare.
on that beautiful baby butt of a leg.
Yeah, it was nice and easy. Just pluck them right out.
I remember when I worked at a shop, every shop I worked at, it was always this thing where like, okay, there's this new writer, and sometimes you get a vibe from a new writer that they're gonna get into it like more than a little bit. Get into it, they're gonna get into it a lot, and you're like, okay, let's take bets on how long before he says yes to Lycra. Let's take bets on how long until he shaves his legs.
Nice.
It was like you could spot it, man. Some people were like, "Oh, I would never, no lycra. Like, I love this, but I'm not gonna wear lycra, or I'm not gonna shave my
Yeah, yeah.
legs." And then all of a sudden, they're like, "You know what's addicting is fast is addicting. Fast is addicting, and the faster you get, the more you want to be fast, and the more fast you get, the more you want to be faster." And then you start looking, you start looking like, what's that food? Wiggins. You're like, what are these tiny things I can do to be faster?
Yeah.
You're finding every tiny thing. Like if I get one spacer less, if this bolt was carbon, like
Oh yeah.
it starts getting ridiculous. The weight weenie comes out, and all of a sudden, like lycra and shaving legs are like that happened a long time ago. You're getting way deeper than that. What was your lightest bike? Do you know?
Um, I don't know. I had like a road bike was probably 15 pounds or a little bit less, and then I was a Madone with carbon wheels and stuff. And then I had when I was doing the 100-mile mountain bike race and the ultra endurance mountain bike racing, I had this 1996 specialized hardtail.
Was it an M2?
The Yeah, it was an M2
I
green
had that.
frame S Works,
Yeah, I
and
had that.
I got I had a RockShox sit on it. I had I built these custom wheels with Altegra hubs,
Oh, nice.
and I had that bike down to like I had it down to 17 pounds
Oh, Lord.
on a
Yeah.
geared mountain bike, 17 pounds, and that's what I was doing my ultra endurance races on.
Triple or
And
double?
then that was a double,
Nice.
yeah, double grip shift.
Ooh.
It was a killer bike, and then it was my brother's, so I borrowed it from him, and then I put all the cool parts on it and made it super light,
Yeah.
and then I gave it back to him to use because I was like I was into a single speed kick for a little bit, and then he sold the
Oh my
bike.
gosh. Oh my gosh. I remember that. I remember when I met you and I was like out of shape. Well, to be fair, I thought I was out of shape then, not knowing how out of shape I would be now. But at the time I thought I was at the time I thought I was out of shape. And I remember like I had the hardest time in Whittier going up 7th Street. Like it was I had never made it. I had never made it up the backside of 7th Street, and you did it on your stupid single speed. I'm like, I was just like, what the hell's wrong with this guy's amazing. This guy is such a beast.
Yeah, that's all just about technique. It's not too much about strength. I mean, it's a little bit about strength, but I think a lot is technique. But
It's a lot of strength. It's a lot of strength and
yeah,
technique.
yeah. So, but yeah, he sold that bike. I was so sad
With
for
your
200
parts?
bucks
Oh
with all my
no,
parts on it.
no.
I was like, bro, that
Oh
poor cologne
no.
is like $600.
Oh my God, no.
Uh,
I
so
never had, well, no, that's not true. I did have some really nice bikes, but before I had really nice bikes, I remember that the nicest bike I could get was a CAD 10. Like that was my upgrade, right? That was my first major upgrade that I got a nice bike on my own. Um, and I got my CAD 10 under 15 pounds. And I'm
that is
talking
really
about
good.
the work. I was I was weighing bolts, dude. Like I
Yeah,
remember buying like a scale that would go to like the nearest like thousandth, like just to make sure it had like the lightest bolts on there.
yep,
I don't have the money, but I got the time.
yeah.
Yeah.
That was a time. I'm past those days for sure. Got my 25-pound gravel bike and my 18-pound road bike.
Oh, dude, I'm in the same boat. Like my gravel bike, I have a nice bike. I have a really nice bike. It rides very well. It's super smooth, flat top tube, so you'd approve. Um,
Yep.
um, but yeah, like it's beautiful. It's a Torelli. It's a Strada, and that bike has very generic parts on it. Like it's a mixed match of just basically everything. I didn't really try to make it a build. I remember talking to you like, should I just build it with what I got, or should I wait until I can get a brand new group set and nice parts on it? And I think like in our conversation, I decided like the sooner I get to ride this, the happier I'm gonna be. So I said, like, fuck it, like I'm gonna ride. And I just
Yeah.
put like all my favorite parts on it. And dude, I don't even want to upgrade it. Like at this point, I don't care if I upgrade it or not. Like there's nothing on that bike that needs an upgrade. Are there lighter parts? Yeah, sure. Are there better parts? Sure, yeah. But it's at a point where I can ride that bike and just be happy riding it. Like it's a super rad bike to ride.
Yeah. I mean, I think there comes a point in pretty much everybody's riding life where you get past the weight weenie days. You realize, dropping a half a pound on the bike isn't gonna get you any faster,
Oh,
right?
and not to mention in gravel, you add it all back. Like I have like an upper triangle bag, like it's like where the head tube meets, right? Like I have
Yep.
a bag there. I have a burrito bag in the front. Like
Yeah.
you're adding so much weight when you do those things. And it's like, well, I want a place to put this, and I want a place to put a burrito because that's where my life is at right now. I want to eat a burrito halfway through a mountain.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, we didn't talk about our first gravel ride. We
Oh
started it.
yes, we
We went
started
out.
and
We
went on a
went out.
tangent there.
That's okay though. That's okay, dude. So, like I said, I had done, and you know what? I remembered, like, kind of going backwards now. I remembered another tangent, right? But I remembered that when I first started riding gravel, like, or the first not gravel but gravel ride I did with you, I had already done that ride for my birthday, and then that ride for my birthday reminded me of kind of my roots because I got very lucky. I was in a very kind of fast group when I first started, but that fast group was a fast group of mountain bike guys who rode road bikes. So they were like they were like, well, we ride road bikes, but we really love mountain biking. And unfortunately, I never really joined them too much because my first ride was way too much. It was like they started me off. I mean, looking back, maybe it wasn't that hard, but I just wasn't ready for it. It was more than more than I could, a bigger bite than I could chew. That's a safe way to say it. And
Yeah,
I
you
had
gotta
a
be
great
careful with
time.
those roadies.
I had a great time, but man, I fell so much. I thought like if I did this, I'm gonna get hurt. And I was like, at the time, I worked for LA County, and I was like, yeah, I can't get hurt. That was the rule. Like like it wasn't gonna happen. Um, and the vibe was really cool with like the mountain bike guys. So like when we did our road rides, we had done dirt trails and we just didn't care. And we did like the Tour of California one year, and we rode the route like I want to say it was like a day before or the morning before, and there was snow. So we went from Santa Clarita to Pasadena through snow on road bikes with 23s, and it was like wild. And so like obviously like I think that's why I wasn't afraid of like mixed terrain because it was like it wasn't really it wasn't new. It was like, oh well, the New Hall bicycle guys, we've been doing this forever.
Yeah.
In Santa Clarita, there's all kinds of like little roads that if you want to do that, it's basically a gravel ride. A good example is Turnbull. Turnbull for them would be a normal ride because they had a ride that was basically like 40% dirt. It was like May Canyon.
Yep.
And so like those things were just normal for them. Like, oh well, like they had done it on their mountain bikes. Like, I could probably bring my road bike here. Why don't we ride this? And then they would do it, right? It was like the back of the Otahunga. Um,
Yep.
and so like when I got into it with you, I had never really done it the way you did it, right? I was always way more structured, which was like kind of the eye-opening experience of you could just be a cowboy and fucking go for it. Like, we're going this direction and we'll turn around or find a loop. And I was
Yeah.
like, what? And that was a fun ride, man. I remember that was really rad. We found some random guy who rode with us for a while, right? Remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And what was the original goal? I think the original goal was to connect to another mountain, right?
I think it was we were gonna ride to the top and then yeah, I don't remember. It was like right at the top and then turn because I was never I rode up that, but I had never been to like the very top. And then we saw some fire road at the top that was leading somewhere, I think. I think we might maybe want to get to the peak. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't recall like specifically.
I remember the last section was like way too rad for me. Like I had to walk it. Like it was gnarly steep.
Of the when we made the turn yet, or before we made the turn. So
No,
I
it
remember
was the
we
it was the
we
last push to the peak.
okay, yeah,
We rode down it, which was rad, really wild, right? But
yeah.
but going up it, like I didn't make it.
Because we rode
And
on
at that time,
snow at that. There was snow up there.
that's right, we hit some snow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even though there was dirt, there was snow, there was steep, there were holes, there was everything you could imagine. Where did I crash?
Yeah, on that freaking bridge with the little pebbles.
Little pebbles, some sand on a cement bridge, man. Oh, that was
Yeah,
rough, dude.
that was an awesome descent.
It
That was
really
like
was.
that was a perfect trail for descending because you could slide it out. It was super consistent, so you could kind of slide around a little bit.
Yeah. No, and the cool part about that descent was it was literally forever. I remember not getting tired of like on the way up, there were some tired moments, but on the way down, it was because sometimes things are so steep that you get tired just from holding it. But it was
Yeah,
very undulating, like it was up and down, so you could kind of relax a little bit. And there was some parts where you could pedal a little bit. It was beautiful. If anyone is in California and you want to do a really rad uh, bike ride, whether it be mountain bike or gravel, or if you're a really crazy road bike, um, Monrovia Truck Trail, man, that's recommended. It was super fun. It was my only time I've been there, and I mean, we got to go back one day. That's we got to go back.
yeah. I think yeah, there was a fire there a couple years ago.
Oh, great. That's the problem with California, right?
Yeah, the trail's kind of it's a win lose. Like the trail system that I started on here in Southern California. You know, it was an awesome trail system in Orange County. About 3 or 4 years after I started riding it, there was a big fire. It was shut down for 2 years, and then it opened back up. And then the trails are 100% different than what they were before.
Uh,
Like the entire system is different, so it's kind of interesting that way.
that's true. I think like even some of the local spots that we used to do all the time, like depending on when you hit them, it's it could be a whole different beast. So yeah, I feel that. I'm a little bit nervous over here in San Bernardino. Like I don't, I honestly feel so far everything I found I'm outgunned. So I think I need like a new fork and some bigger tires. I'm still just rocking 48s.
You need a mountain bike.
Nah, I need bigger tires. Yeah,
Younger
no.
body.
Well, yeah, I don't need a mountain bike. I need a younger body, that's for sure. Speaking of, on my last ride, so I recently rode, and I just tried out this random, like it was in the spirit of gravel, in the spirit of what you taught me on the Monrovia Truck Trail. I was like, I'm gonna go here and see where it goes. And so I rode up for like maybe like 3 or 4 miles, and I just kept riding up and up and up. And oh my god, dude, it was like 20% after 20%. And I was like, there's certain sections I had to walk because it was just like this nasty, chunky, dippy nastiness with sand in the middle. And I kept going up and thinking, like, I really hope this is a loop because if I have to descend all this, I'm so fucked.
Yeah, that's
And I
a
got to,
that's the challenge with those types of rides. Sometimes you just get shit on.
oh yeah, oh yeah. This this was I mean, the ride itself was beautiful. The views were worth it alone. But there were some sections there where like, yeah, I'm not sure if I had a hardtail, I'd want to be there. Like I'm not sure I'd want to be there. Like would I do it? Yeah, more confidence, sure. But wanna be there? Nah, probably not. Like, it was a bit bigger
Yeah, some
than
rides you enjoy them one time, and then
that was a one-time enjoyment ride. I think so. And it left a bruise for sure because on the descent, um and this is exactly knowing you're like out biked, like you're under biked. You're like I was under biked because there's a section that was kind of off camber, and I was trying to ride like the like 45-degree angle because I didn't want to hit the sand at that speed, and so I'm riding the bumpy angle. No, it wasn't 45. It can't be 45. It must have been like 20 to be realistic, right? Um, and my tire just burped and I'm like on there and I feel like a bump and I feel like there's a feeling when you ride enough, you can tell when your tire burps.
yep.
I was so screwed. I was just so screwed. My tire burped. It went instantly into the sand, and I went right over my bars. And I took like a Superman off my bike and just ate it right onto my belly, my chest, dude. Like, oh, and this is not like my 160-pound body flying over a bike. This is like my now 38-year-old, 230-pound body flying over a bike. Oh,
yeah.
Lord. It hits harder, man. That's a lot of
Yeah.
gravity.
Yep. Harder bones, bigger body.
Not good. Not good. Yeah. So, but I remember in the fall, though, it was pretty cool. In the fall, I remember grabbing my bikes like as it's like falling. I remember grabbing my bike thinking, if it flies off, I'm so fucked. So like I fall and I'm trying to roll and I grab like a handlebar and I drag it with me as I slide to a stop. I just slide to a stop and I'm just like I don't let go of my bike, but I can't get up yet either. So I'm just like look, I gotta catch my breath here for a moment and
Yeah.
not let go of my bike in case it's about to fall off.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
But
the bike.
always dude, yeah, that's expensive. What's the old saying? Like scars heal, bones mend, but bike parts are gone forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. It was rad. I think it's a cool ride to have. Like you said, it's a good one-time ride. I'm gonna keep searching out here in San Bernardino, and when I find a ride worthy, you're gonna come join me.
Yep. I need to get out there for sure.
Yeah, man. All right, man. I think we're gonna wrap this up. I think we're gonna wrap it up, and it's been fun talking to you, JD. Always is.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's
Yeah,
great to be
my
here.
my ver- dude, my first guest. You should be so honored, man. This is my
I
first guest
I
ever.
am very honored. I was very nervous, and I think we did well.
Oh, definitely. I think all four people listening are gonna love this.
Maybe it'll garner
So
attention
no,
from a fifth or a sixth person.
oh, if you tell
Maybe you'll get a
everybody no,
like.
we might get a fifth. I don't know. Let's not push it. Let's not push it. Let's just enjoy the moment. It's like a bike ride, man. Be in the present. What are you even talking about?
Yeah.
Um, no, but yeah, thank you so much for joining me, man. I want to say thank you to my wife, as always, who puts up with me while I go record in this dungeon of a garage. And this show is only a podcast. Don't record it like on video. But JD and I do have our video cameras on, just so there's some like eye connection and we can talk to each other. Right? It feels more natural that way. And I gotta say that JD has like these bright lights. There's a halo over his head. There's a rainbow in the back. It's this bright room, and I am pretty much trapped in the abyss of absolute darkness and evil. Like
Maybe
all there is like a face.
can you put a title picture on the on the podcast episode?
So I got a screenshot of it. You can see just how night and day this is. I'll share that on my IG, maybe even Twitter. I don't
There you
use the
go.
Twitter. Please don't. I mean, follow my Twitter, but don't follow my Twitter. Like I would not be hurt if you don't follow my Twitter. But Instagram is kind of where it's at, and YouTube. All right then. So signing off here. That's gonna be it. I guess that's it for episode 2. Thank you so much, JD, again for joining me and being my first guest. He's not on social media, so if you want to hang out with him, you gotta meet him like in real life and talk to him. As for
I'm here
me,
for a
I
ride.
am. You're here for the ride, right? As for me, I am on social media, so you can find me on Instagram on Off the Saddle Podcast. YouTube, it's youtube.com/at Off the Saddle. And Twitter, like I mentioned, I'm not on it. Follow me for no reason at all. But just in case that blows up or like there's some incentive at some point, Off the Saddle PC. All right. Take care, everybody. Hopefully, I'll see you next time you're off the saddle or if you're off the saddle. Take care.